When you're using a website to do a search, one of the tricks is to get to know it inside and out and become a power user. So obviously one of the sites you should be getting to know is 211Ontario, or 211 in your region, like 211 Toronto, 211 Eastern Ontario, things like that. But 211Ontario is a good starting point, and you can, as you'll see, drill down by geography. Now when you come to the site, there are a number of options. You're presented with a search screen. It doesn't look that different from, say, Google. But there are a number of things that are useful for you to know right off the top of the bat. One is you can use a search tool, which we'll do in a little while, which actually walks you through step by step how to lay out your search. Another is, and this isn't obvious, you can actually enter a location here, or you can click on this button and it will ask you if you want to give them access to your location, and then you can tell them to remember. So the website will know where you are based on where you're logged in. So if you go to a different city, it'll know that you're in Toronto. If you go to Lake Louise, you'll be in Lake Louise, and it will modify the search results based on that. Now that can be really useful if you're looking for something that's close to where you are, but it may not be if you're looking for something for somebody else or in a different location. So you can also obviously enter the location manually. Now, one of the other things is, and again, this is getting to know the search tool. Whenever you see something that says show options, that's useful to look at because it's going to give you some information. Right now, for example, 211Ontario is set to default the distance from the location you enter, which could be a postal code, to 100 plus kilometers. Now, for information referral, that's not really that useful. You probably want something that's a bit closer. In a lot of cases, you're going to want something that's close to a major intersection or to a person's home. Best match, nearest to farthest, A to Z, Z to A. These are also other ways that the search results will be provided to you and will be filtered. We don't really know, looking at this, what best match is, so hopefully 211Ontario can provide some information. Nearest to farthest is probably likely to be what you're looking for right off the bat, especially, best match may well be the one. So what you want to do is play a little bit, but if you're not sure what best match is doing or what it might be leaving out, and geography is really important, which it typically is in a search, then you want nearest to farthest. Now, if you're just curious, then doing a search that is chronological from A to Z or reverse chronological from Z to A is also an option. You can also select a topic right off the bat, so you can see a number of different topics. Newcomers is one of them, for example. So whatever you search for in the search box will immediately be filtered by newcomers. And that can be really useful, for example, because 211 categorizes information in its database in a number of different ways. There's topics, there's geography, there's additional categories and subtopics. So for example, if we select newcomers, there are a number of additional subtopics that might come in handy here for you to look at. So maybe you're looking for settlement services. And maybe you're going to search the topic as women, and the location is Toronto, and it'll pop up a little something. And you do a quick search, and all of those things help to refine your search, and that can be incredibly useful. So if you're looking for, in theory, what I just searched for are services for women in Toronto that are offered specifically for newcomers at settlement services. And that narrows the search down to 49 possibilities. And I can't remember how I refined it, so let's just go back. Now that would be useful to have here in terms of how I refined it. Oh yes, so I did best match. So let's look and see what happens if I do nearest to farthest. Now Toronto is a huge geography, so maybe what I'd want to do is narrow that down and see, does East York actually come up? Let's see what happens. In theory, that should narrow down the search results. And it's expanded them to 45. So Victoria, working women still comes in. These are all, and then as you can see here, you can get a little bit more information right off the bat for each one of the records that you get. So that's one way that you can start by drilling down with a search. If you start with a very broad search, for example, let's say if I typed in immigrant women, and then I put in the location as Toronto, Ontario, without refining it at all. Let's see what happens. So very quickly, in theory, what you'll see is a humongous amount of results. So 4,959 results. Way too many results. And even though they're refined by perhaps best match, starting with just a keyword search like you might in Google is not your best use of this particular search tool. And that's important to know, that using the refinement options in something like this is really important. Now, the other thing you can do is, if you scroll down a bit more, is they've actually organized things by topics. So as you saw previously, when you selected a topic, these are all listed here as part of refinements or filters in your search, but you can also start by using them here. So if we started at newcomers and see what other subtopics they now have, we can get a little bit more information, for example. So what do they mean by internationally trained professionals? What do they mean by refugees? And in this case, really important, any stage of a refugee claim. I'm not sure what find help means, so let's take a look. Okay, so that just takes you to the search box. So what it does is that's interesting. So if you clicked on, I browse the subtopics, take me back, and clicked on refugees, what would it do? Okay, it takes me to the same page. So those two links, that's a little confusing, but those two links take you immediately to, these are all the refugee services, 548 that they have in Ontario. Now here's a way that you can sort of test the system. If you actually take that word and enter it, remember we saw 548, and just type in refugees with no location. All right, I'll just put Ontario, see what they give me. We end up with a search result that has 1,015. So there's the question, is how is the system working in the background? How can you refine your search to be more accurate? So somehow they've created a subtopic list that's smaller than the results you get in a keyword search. And that's really important. We don't necessarily know why, but you have to spend some time looking through to say, is this the search result that I'm looking for? Typically, the smaller the search results, the better, because you've added more refinements based on different things. So for example, I could imagine that if they had services for refugees, maybe a sub-refinement would be as part of settlement services, in which case, which is what we saw, newcomer topic and then refugees. So perhaps it's drilling down, if you will, through the topics and subtopics with more refinements along the way. So starting with a keyword search might get you services that are related to refugees. But are they going to get you the ones that you're looking for from an INR perspective? It's a great question. So this tool itself, you need to figure out how to use it a little bit more in order to make sure it's accurate. So if you want to start, sometimes the best way is to try the search help tool, which in this case is going to actually walk you through using it. So can I help your search? Enter a topic. So I'm looking for refugees. Next, it's going to say, okay, search for refugees, enter the location. So in this case, I'm just going to say Ontario, or I could click here again, as I showed you at the beginning, and it will ask you to get permission to know where you're located and refine the search results based on that. But for this, I'm just going to say Ontario. Okay, and this is really important. Again, there are a lot of matches. Do you want to have a maximum distance? Yes, although since my geography is so broad, this will be interesting. And then next, now how do you want to choose a topic? And allows you to start narrowing things down. So I actually want mental health in this case. It's kind of odd when you choose the topic. It's okay, it highlights it, but it doesn't close that. And is there a subtopic I want? Yes. I am interested in person crisis service, mental health, in this case for the keyword refugees. And let's see what we get. So now it's going to conduct the search based on all of those refinements. And each step of the way, it's walking you through the final search results. So I get 22. And this is where your knowledge of the sector comes in really useful. You can scroll through a list of these to sort of see, do these jump out at you? Do these show the kinds of results you would expect to be seeing if you were looking for this kind of information, for example? So, you know, when we look at this, for example, we don't see CAMH coming up. And that could be for a number of reasons. CAMH, of course, will provide services for refugees, but do they name them, or do they outline them as an eligibility audience or as a target group in their service provision? So part of the information you get here is going to be in part based on how the information has been provided by the organization and how it's been entered into the database by the folks at 211. So in a long-winded way, in short, what that means is sometimes you have to keep searching and refine your searches and use the information that you have about the sector to know whether the search is getting you towards what you think you need. So we have to use the knowledge you have to help the tool be a better tool for you. in this area. So if refugees in mental health, and you know that perhaps some service providers are not being listed here, then that might be a sign that you might want to refine your search or change what comes up, for example. Change the inputs that you use. And by that I mean the search keywords, the refinements, all of those kinds of things as you're using the tool. So again, even what seems as simple as a tool like 211 has a lot of complexity to it, and it's important that you become familiar with it while you're doing your searches.